Good afternoon. I'm so glad to be with the two of you this afternoon to talk a little bit about A New Day. Joan, your piece, which what year did you write it? Was it was it 2 years ago or
You
no,
know,
1 year ago?
you can ask me when I was born.
And you'd have
No,
that.
it's 21, right?
I think you started in 2020, didn't you? Because it was like during the pandemic. It was the height of the
Oh,
pandemic.
whatever, we'll look
We
it
could
up.
look it up on this phone.
This is the question the radio people ask me, and I'm like, you know.
Well, maybe we can start with because I know the two of you have known each other for a while, and I was just curious how the two of you first met, and maybe when the first time you had an opportunity to work together or collaborate might have been.
The China trip, was
I
it?
think it was before that.
Oh, it was the ballet.
It was even before that.
Wow, you have a good memory.
It was Oklahoma Mozart.
Oh my God,
yeah.
you were about 16 or something?
Yeah, thanks.
I mean, I remember you, I have that picture. You
Yeah.
look so young.
It was like 2006 maybe.
Oh.
So I was
Whoa.
30.
Oh,
And
wow.
what was your how did you
So we were both at the Oklahoma Mozart Festival together, invited by Paul Neubauer. And that was the first time I played for Daniel.
Oh,
and
yes.
Big
Now
Sky,
I
piano
remember.
trios.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. What a
so
memory.
that goes back that's a little way. So this wasn't even a Bard connection then. This was
No,
before
no.
probably was before you came
Before
to
I came to Bard. But I had already known about Joan for, like, as everyone did, for
Well,
many, many, many years, because my teacher, Andrei Emelianov, was in Da Capo with Joan, and so she was this legend to me. In fact, my first internet password, I never told you this, was Joan Tower.
What?
Wait, have you changed?
I have changed it since then. This is not-
You've got, wow. I don't think we should make that public. I'm getting embarrassed now.
As long as it's not a present day security leak.
That's right. No.
Then I think we're okay.
I've changed it many times since then.
God. And then we played the ballet, was it?
Yeah.
Or was
either
So
it?
this
that
your
or-
ballet? So just to
No,
clue
I had
everybody in
a
here on-
commission by the Pascal Riault Dance Company in New York to write a piece for one of his dances, and I didn't have the. Oh no! He asked me to include one of my pieces, which was for cello and piano, called Très Lent. It's a piece that I dedicated to Messiaen, and I invited Roman to join me. So we went to these. It was really interesting working with dance for the whole, a whole different ball game. But so that's how we continue. That's how we first started working together, right?
yeah.
And we went to China together too.
with the same piece or something else.
With that, among other pieces, yeah.
And you said it's dedicated. This is a model after the Quartet for the End of Time.
Yes, it was an
song.
homage to that
Yeah,
piece
yeah.
particularly. And then, what was the next time?
You were going to write a piece for my quartet, but then I left the quartet.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yes. And then the cello concerto, I guess.
Cello concerto, yeah.
Something-
And my piano trio
Oh
played
no!
for
Wait,
Daniel
wait,
many
wait!
times.
The Boston Chamber of Music
Oh,
Society.
of course, yeah.
They
Yeah.
commissioned me to write a quintet for viola and string quartet, and he played in that. And that was a lot of fun working
And
with
wait,
those
and
great
Ron,
players.
how long have you been at Bard? Because Joan, I know you've been at Bard for a long time.
52
Oh my goodness.
years. Excuse me.
And when did you come? So
2012.
2012. Okay. So it was quite a bit after you met.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, that's right.
yeah.
And I am so. Well, first of all, let me just finish this. So when I was asked to write a cello concerto, I went to him immediately, and I had a reduction, and he helped me with the reduction and saved my life, basically. I had some double stops that were very awkward, and then Elisa Weilerstein premiered it because it was written for her, and played around it. And then he came in and played it with an orchestra in New York, and also with Albany Symphony. And now he's playing. This is his third
I
time.
know.
with this.
Well,
And
I
I'm
was really
just so happy
pleased.
about this.
I
Yeah.
was so pleased,
I
Robert,
know.
that you agreed to to perform it with us.
Well, it's
with
my
the,
pleasure.
With the orchestra now, and we're gonna promote this concert a little bit because it's on March 23rd at Symphony Space. In case anyone's listening and it's still
Oh,
before
that's
March
the
23rd.
promotion?
No, I mean that's just part of it. That's part
Oh, I
of it.
thought you said we were going to know.
Just plugging the date, March 23rd at Symphony Space
okay.
at 4 p.m. But no, I was going to actually, one of my questions was to ask you a little bit about the genesis of the piece and whether it was a commission, but you've given us a little bit of insight into at least Raman, your participation in the early stages of it. But how did it come about? Was this a commission from
Yeah,
Lisa
it's
Balish, right?
Peter Udjian. He's a conductor,
Yeah.
former violinist. He runs this wonderful festival in Colorado called the Boulder Music Festival. And he wanted me to write a piece. And he said, what do you want to write? I mean, it was a wonderful invitation. What do you want to write?
Sure.
Four
plain check.
tubas and four marimbas and orchestra. No, that's not exactly practical. No, I said a cello concerto right away because I have a cello concerto which I don't like very much, and I knew I could write a better one. So he said, "Fine, and I'll
Where
get
did
you the
write
cellos."
What's the first one from? Is that?
The first one was written for Lynn Harrell. Yeah, he died.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So this one, and then there were 4 orchestras involved. Boulder Music Festival premiered it, then Cleveland Orchestra, then Nashville Symphony, and then Pittsburgh played it. And Detroit is still to play it yet.
I see,
So,
but
yeah.
it's coming. But they will. It's coming up. In other words, it was sort of a joint commission.
It was a
from
joint commission.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah.
And we already made reference to the fact that you've already performed it twice, and this will be the 3rd time.
That's right.
Do you want to? How did that come about? I mean, for instance, the first time you played it in New York.
The first time, so that was an orchestra called Camerata Notturna, which is an amateur orchestra, but it's made up of like a lot of type A personalities, and it's led by my friend Steve Cho, and we were actually in the same cello studio with Andrei Emelianov, who was in Da Capo with Joan, and we've been close friends for many years. So he knew that Joan had written this new concerto and asked me to.
And
see
I
if
went
we could
down
do
there.
it.
I went down there thinking amateur orchestra. You know, how good could this be? Wow, I was quite amazed. These were like hedge fund banker guys in the daytime,
Yeah.
but serious players that had graduated from Juilliard and stuff like that, right?
That's correct.
And it
yeah.
was an amazing orchestra with Stephen, what's his name?
Steve Cho is the cellist, and Jonathan Yates.
Oh,
was
Jonathan.
the
Jonathan
conductor,
Yates did a fantastic job. I was sitting there like this. My eyes were like this. Yeah.
So he had heard about it, and Steve Stowe had heard about the new piece, and then asked you if you could poke
That's
around
right.
and see if you could twist her arm together.
That's right, exactly.
And Joan, what about? So I know this would be a very long interview if I asked you too much about your compositional process, because you probably talk about
My
that for a long time.
compositional process?
Yeah, but just a little bit.
Yeah, let's see. How much time do we have?
But just a little bit about the concerto. Was there anything different about this? Because you said you weren't happy with the first concerto. Was there anything different about how you were approaching this?
Well, this is like almost 50 years later. So I'm hopefully have matured more as a composer. Thank you for not asking me to analyze the piece. I don't like to do that, quite frankly. So actually, my husband died the year before. And his decline, he was 95. He was in good shape, but he went downhill. And I was getting to the point where I wasn't sure I would see him the next day. So I started to think about what a day, how treasured a new day is. And that's the premise of the piece. It's how we treasure each day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there are 4 movements, and they're very generic titles, so that the meaning is kind of ambiguous. There's Daybreak, which is waking up and enjoying the first break of day. And then the second movement is Working Out, which could mean a lot of things, or working out our relationship. We were together for 50 years. or it could mean working out, you know,
Physically.
physically.
Yeah.
And then the third movement is alone, almost alone, or mostly
Mostly
alone.
alone,
Mostly alone, sorry.
Yeah.
And the cello is pretty much alone except for some strings that come in and out. And the last one was Into the Night, which is a kind of evocative title, meaning, you know, when you go into the night, lots of things happen, and many, sometimes bad things happen, you know, in your imagination or whatever. It's kind of ominous, that and that movement too. But to me, it was like, is he going to be alive tomorrow? That was the anxiety of that.
That you've woven together. I mean, the thematic material is woven throughout
Yeah.
the piece, and the way it begins, that opening motive, which returns so much.
Right.
From when I, it's interesting the daybreak, and you're referring to an aspect of hope maybe in that idea, but the opening motive almost, it has a lot of pain in it.
Yes, that's right. That's right. You're right. Yeah.
But it's really been fascinating. I'm in the process now of learning the piece, but it's been a delight, and to see how you've put everything together is really.
Thank you.
Really
The
wonderful.
tempos.
Tempos have to be
No,
right. They have to be right.
said this is seriously a new stage of something in my life where the tempos. I used to. I'm very good with rhythm, and I know tempos inside and out, but this piece skates so much.
So wiggle room.
You have a little wiggle room.
Well, some of it's going to be determined by
that's
by
true.
the bow, right?
He can have all the wiggle room he wants in the world.
And Robin, how was it for you to perform the piece? I mean, multiple times, and you're looking at the third time coming up, but how was it to perform it each time?
Yeah, each time is different. And I'm very grateful to have multiple times to do it, because the first time has like this, crazy energy to it, of course.
Yeah,
and I'm
right.
talking about any first performance.
Sure.
And then the
More
second time
nervousness.
you get a little more settled, and it could be dangerous to be more settled.
Right.
And the third time, you start to really inhabit it. I'm hoping this is now the fourth time, because there were two in Albany.
I see.
So I'm hoping that this one will, inhabit it even more.
Well, I might be able to muck up the works.
No, I'm not worried about you with the orchestra.
And Joan, I was curious about, so I know since Alyssa Weilerstein premiered the piece, I was curious about how, you talked about how you and Robin went over some of the drafts. How was it working with, or how much was she involved in, as you were working on the piece, and had you worked with her before?
I had never met her or worked with her. I got to know her at the Boulder Music Festival, which was a premiere, and I was making changes right and left. And so was Peter. Peter's amazing conductor, who is an ex-chamber music player. So with him, music is always a collaboration. I've never worked with a conductor that gave me that much latitude and time. So he would say, Joe, I think he's a string player. I think it'd be lovely off the string, don't you think? Be my guest, because he knows the sound, So, and tempos. We had a few fights here and there, but it was all non-personal and just fantastic. And Elisa went with the whole thing. She's a terrific cellist, and she went with the whole thing. So, and she even had a couple of suggestions too. Yeah.
How is it writing for solo? I mean, this is sort of a silly question, but writing for solo cello versus, other instruments.
It's not a silly question.
Well,
because you mean concertos?
Yeah,
cello.
concertos.
Yeah, because I've written 11 concertos for flute, clarinet, oboe, percussion, piano. Anyway. The orchestra turns out in each one of these cases to be a totally different orchestra, and a use of the orchestra, because of the strength of the soloist, the instrument, the instrument itself.
Right.
And the one thing I learned about the cello is that because it's a lower instrument, it doesn't project as easily above an orchestra as the violin does. Let's say.
Right.
So whenever it gets very high intensity, the orchestra completely leaves. so that you can the cello comes forward with that same content. So you're hearing the same thing by one player, but very loud.
Right.
And the pressure on the cellist is formidable, right? Or
I know exactly where you're talking about.
yeah, there are a few places like that. But then the cello is left alone a lot, especially in the solo movement, to go down into its deepest, most rich level.
Yeah.
But
Right.
you can't do that in the orchestra very successfully
Right.
because it'll get buried, totally buried.
There's one moment where you have another cello playing along the 16th note
Yeah,
passage. where you're
that's
doing
right.
tunes together.
I had to give the other
Interesting.
cellist something to do, you
No,
know.
it's a really interesting sort of moment of the duet going on.
That's true.
And what was I? I was just going to ask you something else about. Oh, yes. If there's any other cello works or cello concerti that you've, don't get a sense that there's a model or something that you've. But any other works that were
You know, I learned a long
inspiration?
time ago never to go listen to a piece of music that is that particular instrument
yeah.
while you're writing.
Yeah.
I had a composer who came and visit me in St. Louis, and he was writing a violin concerto, and he opened his briefcase, and there were 10 scores of violin concertos. And I was like, are you writing a violin? Yes. So you're going to study all those great concertos? I have to. I have to study them. I said, why? Aren't they intimidating? No, Joan, you have to know the literature. You have to know the literature. I'm like, I don't think so. I think it's dangerous, you know. Anyways.
And Robin, for you, when you were learning the piece, was there anything particularly challenging, or I mean, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall when you were having those early conversations during the draft phase about what it reminds me of. I mean, hearing stories about Tchaikovsky and is it Leopold Auer, whoever all these composers going, or there are many cases of, I think of piano concertos where if the composer wasn't a pianist, the pianist really had to get involved. Like I think it's Dvorak piano concerto, other things like that. But I'm just curious if
which were unplayable.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
If they're not idiomatic for the instrument. But I'm just curious if there's anything that struck you when you were learning this piece, as opposed to any other concerto things you might have looked at.
I mean, Joan writes so beautifully for the cello. It's. I mean, she mentioned some double stops. That's my personal limitations that I'm glad she took out.
No.
But she's written so many pieces for the cello. She knows the instrument like the back of her hand. It's,
Thank you. Thank you.
I didn't have any. All the issues were squarely on my shoulders in terms of how to practice it.
It takes a long time for the composers to know all the instruments.
Sure.
You have to live with them, you have to write with them and write for them and really get to know the strengths they have in the different registers, and it takes a long time.
Well,
but I'll tell you one thing, why I wanted to write it. I love the cellists of this world. I've worked with many of them. They're just so, I don't know, they have a personality. Have you found this?
Sure, yeah.
We are.
They're warm and
Certain
fuzzy,
instruments have
and they're
certain-
just very generous types. You can go away now. That was the other reason I wanted to write a second cello.
Well, it's funny that you were talking about how long it takes to really get to know an instrument well, and you, when we started this talk, and talked about your first concerto, and at that time maybe not knowing it quite as well and wanting to write a better concerto,
Yeah.
as in your words. But
I think I have written a
yeah.
better tune.
Well,
I don't say that about my own music very often.
It's a beautiful piece. It's so
Thank you.
it's so
Thank you.
touching, and I'm really looking forward to
Thank you.
this process. And I'm also looking forward to having you come to rehearsals and work with me and the orchestra now. In real time.
Absolutely. Will they take
it-
suggestions?
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. No, but
Okay.
it's a great opportunity for us to work with the composer of a new work like this. So
Great.
we'll definitely make time for that.
Good. Well, thank you for programming it.
Oh, absolutely. It's a
And thank you
pleasure.
for putting
It's a
me
delight.
before. Who's on the end?
It's
Tchaikovsky.
David. No, it's David Serkin Ludwig is the first.
Yes,
is the first
he'll
thing,
be
and
there.
That's the opener, and that's Peter Serkin's nephew. By the
I
way.
know
Yeah.
him.
Okay, you know
He'll
him,
be
right.
there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
I went to college with him, but I haven't
He didn't
talked to him
know
recently.
about it. He didn't know about
Oh,
it.
well,
no.
I'm-
So what's on after the?
And then after is Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony.
See, that's I'm just saying. I'm so glad you put me before him. Hello, that's one of the most powerful pieces in the world.
It's a little long too, so you know it's
the Tchaikovsky. I know those dead composers. They just really took up a lot of space, you know.
Well, my guess is that the members of the orchestra now many of them may have played the Tchaikovsky before, and it's good to reinforce some of the standard repertoire. But I bet the highlight is going to be working with you on this concerto.
Well, I'll try to be nice.
Well, we're looking forward to it, and then
We are
and
too.
the concert's on March 23rd.
Thank you.
then.
Thank you. This is great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.